What's up, kidfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. And today we're going to talk about Justin Flowe, Elias, Kyler Murray, not just where he could go, but him having signed a stoolie as an agent. We're also going to get into a little bit of Derek Green. I made that video earlier if you haven't seen it already. And the winner of my college football trivia contest. And also, American Putter Company sent me some very cool stuff, including the putter for the grand prize winner for the folks that participate in this all the way through. But let's make sure that we first know that the sound is good. And you know what? The sound is good. I'm excited about that. The sound being good is one of those things that you can get excited about it now, because last week the sound was not good. But now that the sound is good, let's talk a little bit about Derek Green, right? So Derek Green basically made it known that he no longer wants to be at Oklahoma. He's going to leave the program if he hasn't already. This is a 3-star recruit out of North Carolina. This was a guy that had signed with this class after being recruited by Ruffin McNeil to play defensive tackle. He's also the only prototypical defensive tackle in the 2019 class. Now, there's lots of defensive ends in that class, and I'm sure a lot of those dudes are going to move over and play defensive tackle, like, for instance, Corey Roberson. He gets back healthy. But this is not a good look for Oklahoma. It's not a good look because you got Ron Tatum going into the transfer portal for whatever reason, and now you've got Derek Green joining the Navy. At least that's what he plans to do today, right? So as a part of all of this, you got 2 defensive linemen who have left the program in 2 months after you getting a new defensive coordinator on campus and saying we're going to be faster at our defensive line positions, which means that a lot of those dudes ain't necessarily built for it. And now that we know that Michael Thompson ain't necessarily playing defensive tackle, and that was a 4-star Army All-American, you have to wonder who is playing defensive tackle now. Now you have some options, right? You have Troy James, you got Dylan Fa'amata, you've got Neville Gallimore, but you're also going to need to get some help from guys like Jordan Kelly. A lot of folks want to know what's going on with Arthur McGinnis, a guy that was outside linebacker, all of a sudden has moved to defensive end and or defensive tackle, depending on who you want to talk to, but hasn't been really seen since the FAU game last season. You're also talking about guys that might not necessarily have been prototypical defensive tackles that would have been defensive ends moving inside, but we'll have to wait and see because nobody's actually seen Alex Grinch's defense, which is kind of exciting, right? Because you don't know what it's going to look like. You see a 3-4 scheme, yeah, all right, but you also see one gap scheme, which basically is a 4-3 to me, right? Or 3-3-5, or ability to be multiple, and you know that he wants takeaways. This is a defense that only had 11 turnovers in 2018, and they're looking to get 24 in 2019. That is going to be an enormous jump. But for me, where you're going to miss a guy like Derek Green, where you're going to miss a guy like Ron Tatum, is on 3rd and short, particularly just 3rd down conversions in general. Oklahoma ranked number 118th in 3rd down defense in 2018, and they didn't look real good at it against Texas in the Big 12 title game, and certainly not against Alabama in the Orange Bowl. And it became sort of a joke that Oklahoma would give up conversions on 3rd down, and 3rd and short was almost a gimme for many offenses from Kansas State all the way to Alabama, because you did not have the beef up front to get off of blocks and make plays. Now, a lot of that I think is scheme. A lot of that is asking a guy like Neville Gallimore to be Jordan Phillips. And for those that are paying attention, Jordan Phillips is the highest draftee in the NFL draft that Mike Stoops has put out in defensive line in a very long time. So you got to go back a while, is what I'm saying. You got to go back to 2015 when Jordan Phillips, I believe, went 52nd overall in the 2nd round as in defensive tackle, and he played the nose, and that was the reason why that defense worked, and you could have Stryker being a holy terror on the outside. But you haven't had that guy since Jordan Phillips left. And that was a guy that a lot of folks made a lot of fun of because he was slow to get to where he was going. But once he figured out how to play the nose, zero technique, there was no stopping that guy. And we've been looking for that guy at Oklahoma for a long time. Devontae Lampkin was supposed to be that guy. Charles Walker was supposed to be that guy. Neville Gallimore is supposed to have been that guy. And for his part, he had 16 tackles for loss last year, 3 sacks, right? 50 total tackles, which is way more than I want my defensive tackle to get. But again, part of his job was holding up 2 and 3 guys at a time, if at all possible, to let guys like Ronnie Perkins, Mark Jackson try to get to the quarterback while Kenneth Mann tried to do what he could. So I'm really interested to see how all of this shakes out. Now, in the interim, does Oklahoma get that scholarship back? Yes, they will. right? Whether the kid transfers or joins the Navy, and I think he's going to join the Navy, and I really support that decision. But you're also going to look in the grad transfer market, and there's a couple guys that they can go get. Check OUinsider.com, where I and Brandon Drum will have more to say about that. But again, you got to wonder what the defensive line is going to look like, number one, and what your depth is going to look like, because you haven't got a lot out of those guys we call defensive tackles. And OU fans would be right to be more than a little pissed about the development of the defensive tackles, because as good as OU has been at developing quarterbacks, at landing transfer quarterbacks, at getting great transfer play on the offensive side of the ball, dating back to Justin Brown, right? Remember him. You can't say that about the defense. Like, that's a glaring mistake and or instance where I felt like Oklahoma should have done something. Now, they had an opportunity last year, right? That one missed them. They thought they got a guy. That guy ends up at Georgia. It happens. But you can't really talk about a guy not having been here being something that could be a game changer. So I'm asking, when is it that Oklahoma could go out and get a dominant defensive grad transfer? What would that look like? Because are there really that many guys that are dominant defensive grad transfers out there? Yeah, they are. Bubba Bolden, that guy, well, grad transfer, excuse me, that's a transfer. Grad transfers out there, we're talking about what? I'm struggling to think of a great defensive grad transfer. And I think I know why, too. It's because when you're identified as a great defensive player early, you go into the NFL draft, because that is the commodity, right? We can find offensive players. We can find kids that can transfer. But even while we're talking about defensive grad transfers, what about transfers? What would have stopped Oklahoma from trying to go get Bubba Bolden from USC, guy that just popped in my head a few minutes ago? Or Jalen Phillips out of UCLA, who I know had a tie to Roy Manning and played for him out there at UCLA and was number one recruit in the country at one point. There were dudes out there to go get, and whether it's because of your coordinator search situation taking precedent, which is cool and I get that, or because you just didn't feel like you needed to do that because you had this pretty good 2019 class you felt good about, doesn't really matter to me. What matters is that you're not necessarily getting the production that you want to get. And while you have told everybody that the defense is going to be different, you also ran off a couple kids for reasons that might have something to do with the football program and reasons that might not. Point is, bodies are bodies, and you ain't got none. Let's check the chat. Let me see. Mama! There's Laura in there. Chase, I see you. Robert, what's good? Defensive ends are a hot commodity in the NFL, getting eaten up in the draft. Yes, sir, they are. So, now I think we can transition a bit into Kyler Murray and what has been going on with that guy, right? Number one, dude finally got an agent, an NFL agent. Now, Scott Boras cannot represent Kyler Murray in the NFL. Can't do it. Major League Baseball agent, right? We can get into the rigmarole about that, but for our purposes, just know they can't do it. So he finally signed a guy. And he signed that guy just this morning, Eric Burkhart, who is a stoolie. All right, cool. You signed an agent who's a stoolie. And then you signed an agent who is Cliff Kingsbury's agent. Huh. And then Cliff Kingsbury has to go out and say, we're not going to sign Kyler Murray. Josh Rosen is our guy. We're not going to draft Kyler Murray. Josh Rosen is our guy. But Eric Burkhart represents both of you now. And Eric Burkhart is calling Cliff Kingsbury his brother. This is wildly interesting to me. Because number one, you got Cliff Kingsbury, who is going to be the guy everybody's watching week one because he failed up into a job, number one. Number two, he wants to run air raid, or at least that's what he ran at Texas Tech. So I'm wondering what that looks like with the pieces he has around. And number two, why would you want to continue to have Josh Rosen as your guy if you said way back when that Kyler Murray would be your number one overall pick? Now, he also qualified that statement saying, hey, I was being complimentary of a team we were playing that week. I did not know that I would be the Arizona Cardinals head coach come February. Well, how is that possible? Because I got to believe you knew before anybody else knew that you could be Arizona head coach. Like, I just don't see that you don't know anything about this in October, and then by January, it's happened. It's over. It's done. So much so that you had a cup of coffee at USC as if to force their hand. I don't buy it. So I'm not necessarily going to rule out that you're not going to draft Kyler Murray or try to shop Josh Rosen for some offensive linemen and or picks. Because there are lots of teams in the NFL that still run the kind of offense where Josh Rosen would thrive. Notably, the New York Giants. So what if you traded down with them and then you got Kyler at like 6, right? That's a win for you. That's a win for everybody. Now, talk about the cap hit. We're talking about cap space. We get into that. But the NFL prints money, and if they want to go get Kyler Murray, they'll go get Kyler Murray, which is one of the reasons why I have poured one out for Denver Broncos fans who are stuck with Joe Flacco in back-to-back years where they could have gone and got, Baker Mayfield, who John Elway basically baited everybody with by showing up at the pro day last year, or traded to go get Kyler Murray this year. Instead, Joe Flacco. Have fun with that. But again, Kyler Murray to Arizona is the sexy thing to look at because Cliff Kingsbury knows air raid, and we know that Kyler Murray just got done winning a Heisman Trophy in the air raid, and we also know that he's the best athlete in this draft. But forget Arizona for a second. Where else could he go? He'd go to the Bengals. Zach Taylor, by the way, a native Oklahoman head coach at the Cincinnati Bengals, might not be married to Andy Dalton. And why would he be? But you think about Kyler Murray next to Joe Mixon throwing passes to A.J. Green, and all of a sudden, that's sexy. That looks real good on paper. Matter of fact, that might be my Madden squad if that happened. But you got to answer the question about whether Andy Dalton is your guy going forward for the next 3, 4, 5 years. But that's not taking into account the 2020 draft or what I'm dubbing the Trevor Lawrence draft in 2021 when that dude is going to be the first pick overall. So it's not as if they have to make a move. But if you wanted Kyler and you like Kyler and you're Zach Taylor and you think that you know something that McVay knew, maybe you go and get Kyler Murray. It's a natural fit. The Giants, not so much of a natural fit because that's not what Pat Shermer likes to run. But if he was willing to adapt his personnel to running something that was a little bit more wide open, again, having Kyler Murray next to Saquon Barkley is sexy. Having Kyler Murray, Saquon Barkley on one side, and then you got over here at your wide receiver is Sterling Shepard. I almost said Russell Shepard. And then over here at your X receiver, you got Odell Beckham Jr. That's sexy. Evan Ingram at the tight end. That's sexy. You can get that done. But again, do you want a Dwayne Haskins type if you're Pat Shermer? Probably, right? I know that some folks have Kyler Murray slotted to the Miami Dolphins, but since we don't know what kind of scheme, if any, Brian Flores wants to run associated with, an air raid, I don't know, man. I mean, Ryan Tannehill seems like he could be a pretty good quarterback, and you don't necessarily have to make that move, but I am not going to hate Kyler Murray throwing passes to Kenny Stills or Jakeem Grant, for that matter. With Kenya Drake in the backfield. Again, it's sexy, but that's kind of my point about Kyler Murray. There's really like a third of the league where he is an outstanding fit because he is himself, right? And I think this is one of the ways where Kyler's agent, Eric Burkhart, was onto something when he went on his Stooley podcast to say the dinosaurs in the NFL are wrong. Number one, Kyler Murray is tall enough to throw the football over whoever he needs to throw the football over. Number two, he weighed in at 205, so he's not exactly slight of build either. But I'm not sure that I want my agent going on the comeback season from all the time talking about what I'm going to do or what I'm going to be. Of course, I'm not Kyler Murray, and I didn't make that decision. So again, wildly fascinating because I feel like Eric Burkhart is going to break more news than Kyler Murray is going to break. And watching this thing play out with the power dynamics is going to be a lot of fun because we know from Stooley behavior that those dudes ain't really into taking orders from anybody or backing down. I mean, Portnoy got handcuffed at the Super Bowl, right? I mean, as talented as some of those dudes are, it's still Barstool. And that's who Kyler just signed. So there's a whole group of people that necessarily are looking at this and they're holding their nose, but maybe Kyler knows something that we don't, right? It's food for thought. I think the last one that I wanted to mention in as far as places where he could land that I thought was just kind of asinine, San Diego, or I should say LA Chargers. I get that Anthony Lynn worked with Tyrod Taylor at Buffalo, but drawing the black quarterback comparison, the dude that runs comparison, why not just say that, whoever that John Harbaugh used to work with wants to pick up Kyler Murray? I just don't see it. I think Phil's got to be the quarterback until Phil doesn't want to be the quarterback anymore. Kind of like Eli Manning, he's going to have to be remarkably bad. And since Phil was an MVP candidate right up until the end, I don't see Phil going anywhere. I just don't. Right? And I don't think that anybody who watched that dude play football expects him to take a backseat to anybody right now. Phil Rivers is your franchise if you're the LA Chargers. It ain't Melvin Gordon. He was hurt. Remember? It ain't Keenan Allen. He got hurt. Remember? I remember. It ain't Antonio Gates. It certainly ain't Hunter Henry. You got to build around Phil Rivers for the foreseeable future. While if you're Bill Belichick, maybe you draft Kyler. I don't think he falls that far, and I don't think they would trade up to go get him. But it's sexy to think about because it's Bill Belichick. You see where I'm going here? Everything looks better with Kyler Murray, which is why I've always thought it was asinine that we're having these conversations about his height. I mean, just think about it. Would you rather have him or not have him? You would rather have him. All right? Check the chat. Let's see. Could Kyler end up with the Steelers? No. They drafted Mason Rudolph. They have Josh Dobbs. They got a dude that I think is a cancer in Ben Roethlisberger, but they are not going anywhere. No. Let me see. Texas Brew, thanks, Cliff. Let me see. Rise Mercury. Potentially seeing a Kyler versus Baker matchup in the NFL eventually would be awesome. Yeah, I don't think I would love that as much because I'd be terrified that one of those dudes is going to hurt the other. Or get hurt. Not hurt the other, but get hurt. Appreciate that, Jerry. Kyler to the Giants. Yeah, okay. Kyler to Cincy. Yeah, okay. Greeland James. Denver is out of the Kyler Murray sweepstakes. They got Ravens QB now. Yeah, I know. Which is stupid. But I'm not the only person that thinks that's stupid. The entire internet thinks that the Joe Flacco thing is stupid. The only person that thinks it was smart is John Elway, who ain't exactly been great at picking quarterbacks. Paxton Lynch, Trevor Siemian, Case Keenum. Oh, yeah, Brock Osweiler, who was picked 18 spots ahead of Russell Wilson. God, somebody get John Elway away from the controls. It's not working anymore. What's it got here? How much could Meatloaf? Okay. That's how you get put in timeout there, bro. You're gonna come in the chat. Come in the chat and talk. Don't come in here to make it about yourself. Let me see. Broncos fans should be livid. I feel for them. It ain't exactly Denver over there because they won a Super Bowl in the 21st century, but I feel for them. Let me see. So, now let's talk a little bit about some 2020 prospects that I know are on everybody's mind. Let's start with Justin Flowe. Justin Flowe is an inside linebacker, top linebacker recruit in the country, and an absolute bully. Like, to watch this guy go through the non-pad drills is to see a dude that just likes beating up on people. And I'm not necessarily sure that that's a good thing, because I look at him and I see I see Vontae Burfict's attitude, but in a good way. And I also see Jeremiah Trotter as a downhill tackler, because the guy knows how to split your offensive linemen, get through them, bust through them, and make plays in the backfield, right? I know Jeremiah Trotter's a bit of a reach for some of y'all, but just go back and look, and you'll see the Axeman was that dude in the middle of the Eagles' defense. But I really like his game. I just don't necessarily see how it fits at Oklahoma right now. Yeah, OU hasn't shown me that Justin Flowe is something that fits right away, because he's a Mike linebacker that thrives in a 4-3 kind of scheme. He's the kind of guy that you want just running between the guard and the guard. He can run sideline to sideline because he has that kind of ability. That's why he's a 5-star recruit. He can cover, but that's not what he does. He's not a space linebacker. He's an enormous child who is a man-child who can destroy whom he may. And most of the time, that's anybody that gets in his way. This is one of those guys that gets invites as a junior to these opening finals, to these Rivals 5-Star Challenge. I mean, he's been pegged as one of the it dudes in the 2020 class. And when we're talking about 5 stars, remember that when we're not just talking about the best athlete at any position, we're talking about kids that you expect to leave early from college and go into the NFL in the first round. That's what 5-star status means. It means that recruiting services, 24/7, Rivals, what have you, ESPN, have pegged that kid as the kind coming out of that class that they expect to go in the first round as soon as he's eligible. That's why you only see between 25 and 34 of those guys in any given year, right? Because they're supposed to correspond to rounds and grades, and we can get into more of that, and that's a different sort of upload. But since nobody's really watching the channel in February, I might hold off on that, right? Point is, Justin Flowe is that dude. Now, whether or not he ends up Oklahoma, I think it's a very long shot at this point. He's from California. He likes USC like most kids that grew up in California. He's had eyes on him by everybody for a long time. He's a better fit for Georgia, Alabama, LSU, right? He's a better fit at places where they play 3 linebackers or a 3-4 scheme that is a 1-gap scheme. I guess that could be Oklahoma. But again, good defensive players want to go to good defenses. And that's kind of how I'm leading into this talk about Elias Ricks. It's really difficult for you to convince a guy like Elias Ricks, who to me is a Pat Peterson clone, that you should be at Oklahoma when Oklahoma ain't putting dudes on the podium for the Paycom Jim Thorpe Award, and Oklahoma ain't putting defensive backs into the league in the first round or the second round. You know, that's not what Oklahoma's routinely doing. Oklahoma didn't have Greedy Williams last year. Didn't even have Nate Brooks, who was at UNT, right? And if you're Elias Ricks or Justin Flowe for that matter, you want to go to a defense where you know that that defense has an opportunity to be one of the best in the country, and you can get the kind of evals and draft evaluations that put you in the first round. And that only comes from being developed. And yeah, you got a new coordinator, so what Mike Stoops used to do is not necessarily on the table right now, but Alex Grinch has to develop what's here. He has to develop what's here right now, because that is how you're going to land kids in the 2020 class. You know, you don't get to sell them on what they could be in a couple of years. They want to see what you can do with lesser parts. It's one of the reasons why I keep telling people, y'all need to be on the Buki train, because you don't necessarily understand the kind of icon Buki is in California. That what he does here reverberates across the country because so many kids look up to him. It's not a small thing to just cast that kid aside. And the fact that he earned his 5-star status as short as he is cannot be undersold either, especially when you've been playing him out of position. So if you screw up Buki, and you kind of screwed up Caleb Kelly, can you really expect talented kids from the West Coast to look at Oklahoma and not think, I don't know, man, if they messed up Buki, if they messed up Caleb Kelly, what are they going to do to me? I mean, that's a valid question. That's not speaking out of school. That is a question that I would put to Lincoln Riley if I had a kid. It'd be like, I don't know, man. Show me which guys you're going to put in the league. Show me how you're going to develop my kid. Because we're talking about coaches that are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars if they're position coaches at big-time universities, and millions of dollars if they're coordinators or head coaches, who are going to get their money, and they're going to have opportunities to get other jobs. I mean, look, Kerry Cooks more or less got pushed out of Oklahoma and ends up at Texas Tech. He's doing just fine. Whereas we're talking out loud right now about how much we don't like kids transferring who have to sit out a year. Nah, we need college football free agency for the same reasons that coaches should be able to coach where they want to coach. But that said, I think that turns up the heat and the pressure on defensive coordinators like Alex Grinch and coaches like Lincoln Riley to produce with the kids that they have. Because it's not so easy as, we'll recruit better next year. Nah, the time for that is over if you're Oklahoma's defense. Because we're not even talking about being great. We're talking about not being garbage. We're talking about not being trash. You know, we're talking about getting back toward the middle. And how if the defense was even in the middle, back-to-back national championships. And that should make everybody upset. So in trying to land a guy like Justin Flowe, and trying to land a guy like Elias Ricks, who is committed to LSU, by the way, you're going to have to show what you've done in 2019. Because, yeah, you got an in with Elias Ricks. Goes to school with Darian Green-Warren. They're very close. They carpool together. They both were in the same defensive backfield as Jeremiah Cradell, who is a Sooner. So it's not as if you're not in competition for his last visit. Official visit, I should say. But the kid knows what the business is, and he knows what the math is. And if you're Elias Ricks, and you want to go into the NFL like every other kid who plays big-time college football, you're going to try to give yourself the best opportunity to do that. And to heck with your compete for a job mentality. No. Each one of these kids has a lottery ticket, and they're looking to cash it, and Elias Ricks is at the front of the line. In the meantime, court a guy like Keely Ringo, who might be thinking about Washington or Texas at this point. How much would it suck for Oklahoma to miss out on Keely Ringo? Oh, about as much as it sucked to miss out on Jacob Phillips. Well, maybe not that much, but I'm going to keep making that joke because there's a certain group of people who understand that one. No, let's check the chat. Let's see. Did Tatum transfer? Lloyd, Tatum did not transfer yet, but he's supposed to. He's in the portal. I think that you won't know that these kids transfer until they, finish the semester because they're in school right now. And it's not like you could transfer in the middle of the semester if you're a regular student. So, no, he hadn't transferred. But I expect to hear something as soon as, I'm not going to put a number on that. I expect the kid to transfer. I know that Oklahoma's doing the best they can to try to hold on to him, but I expect him to go somewhere. I don't think that this situation gets fixed. That's all I can really say about it, too. Let's see. What else we got in here? Robert, he won't produce. Ohio State had better talent. Okay. We got a Grinch hater in here who is salty about Ohio State. Don't lose to Purdue by 30. How about that? Okay? Don't come in here talking about how much Grinch was garbage when he didn't call the plays at Ohio State. That's Greg Schiano. And you got railroaded by Purdue. And who is Purdue? Huh? Except the team that got trashed by Auburn. Get out of here, Ohio State. What else we got in here? Wendell, I see you. I know my mama was in here for just a second. Jeff Kirkland, what's good, fam? What else we got in here? Running out of time. Let's see. What else did I have on the docket? Oh, college football trivia. Okay. So, on the radio show, Fight Me with RJ Young on Sports Animal, I asked this question. Right? Well, Corey asked this question. Who was the last Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback to throw more than 10 interceptions in a season? A lot of folks thought it was Jameis Winston. He threw exactly 10. The question was more than 10. The answer was Chris Winkie. Okay? As in, came to get my boy's Heisman back. That Chris Winkie. Now, there were 11 folks that came up with the right answer in between Sunday and now. And my drawing, which is me putting names into a hat, pulled out Sam Philbeck. Fam Philbeck, if you're watching, hit me up in the DMs. I'll hit you up later. And we'll come up with another college football trivia question on the radio show on Sunday, but also somewhere around here. Hey, Laurel made it in. Cool. Hey, babe. Also, somewhere around here is there it is. Here's the putter APC just sent me for the winner of the grand prize for the college football trivia contest. Although I might just change it to a trivia contest because I got some movie quotes in there that I want to work in. But isn't this sexy? Look at this. Check this out. This is awesome. I mean, this is Damascus. Like, that's titanium and Damascus. That's samurai sword. That's what they sent us. They sent us a samurai sword to give away with this really cool black grip. I like it. Got that APC logo in there too. Check that out. Yeah, so I'm going to be showing this off, so you should be paying attention to when I do these college football trivia contests because this is nice enough for me to want to win my own trivia contest, you know what I mean? I'm getting my own putter, but that's how nice it is. Matter of fact, check this out. Even got the X there, and you can see. So you can, line the ball up correctly, do what you need to do. All right. Putter is beautiful. Yes, it is. What about the 2020 running backs would take atop the list? All right, well, I guess I can do a little bit about that before we get out of here. Jace McClellan is committed to the 2020 class. He is the top recruit in the 2020 class. He's been committed to the 2020 class for some time, and there's a lot to like about Jace McClellan. In watching his tape, the thing I love most about Jace McClellan is that he is strong. He is strong. Like, just the stiff arm and the ability to shuck people and the running through tackles and the still growing. And then you look at the yardage, and it's not that he's especially fast. Like, his film does not show him to be elite level speed. But he is fast enough for high school kids not to track him down. And he is fast enough to where if he gets to the corner, he's not a liability, right? And he can catch the ball out of the backfield. But when I knew that Jace McClellan was special, I'll tell you this story. I'm at the opening final at the Star, Frisco. Big deal. We got the best high school football players in the country in one place, and they're going at each other. But most of these kids that are there, like 95% of them, are 2019 kids. That means they're seniors. Okay? They are high school seniors. They're summer before their senior year. Jace McClellan, like Elias Ricks, one of those 2020 kids that got an invite because he made it through regionals, right? And got the invite to this basic national final, right? That's what it is. It's a national final. And they got this drill for the running backs because there ain't really a whole lot of great drills for the running backs. But the drill was they had a Mike linebacker and a weak side linebacker, so a Mike and a Will. And they would tell the running back which direction to run. It'd be right or left. And the job of the running back was to shake both of these dudes and not get two hands laid on them by one or both, right? So you could have a hand from each linebacker lay on the dude and then he'd be tagged, right? So it'd be two-hand touch. I knew Jace McClellan was fast. I knew Jace McClellan was strong. I did not know that Jace McClellan could put you on skates. Because watching this child put these other two children on skates who are 2019 linebackers who could absolutely play, fall down, shake them like a bowl full of Jell-O, okay? Shake them like a snow globe, was one of the highlights of my experience down there. Now, I got to interview him for a little bit, and we talked a little bit about dread care because he got dreads too. Turns out he washed his all the time, and I was like, man, I wish I could wash mine all the time. So now that I can wash it pretty much whenever I want, but it get fuzzy and whatnot, and then Laura got to fix it. But Jace McClellan is special in that I've yet to see what the dude can't do. Now, I haven't seen him block enough to really grade it, but Jace McClellan is that dude. Now, in talking about who else you might add to the class in the running back list, yo, this might be the deepest running back group that I've seen in the last 5 to 6 years. You know, whether you're talking about Zach Evans or Kendall Milton or even Savion Morrison, who continues to pick up offers from everybody but Oklahoma and perhaps Texas. Like, he picked up an offer from Les Miles today, okay? He's got offers from Arkansas. He's got offers from Baylor. He got offers all over the place. Tulsa Edison, 2020 guy, right? And yet, Oklahoma is in on these other kids that just rate much higher than him in the running back group. You know, you've seen guys already decommit from this class like Jalen Knight, who was a pretty great all-purpose back. And maybe he gets back in, but it seems like Oklahoma could level up in the way that it leveled up after R.J. Henderson decommitted and then ended up with Jaden Hazelwood in the boat. So I'm not really concerned about the running back situation, but I've never been concerned about the running back situation at Oklahoma, just as I've never been concerned about the quarterback situation at Oklahoma. Just doesn't, it'll get filled. It's fine. We haven't even talked about Jalen Robinson joining the transfer portal because it's wide receiver. It's fine. It's good, right? That is not a position of need at the University of Oklahoma, and I dare say it won't be a position of need at the University of Oklahoma for some time. Okay? All right. I think that is going to do it for me. If you like the channel, don't forget to like and subscribe because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. I will see you tomorrow. Deuces.